Latin from Scratch course, 5th class, the verbal conjugation. And this class is kind of similar to the 3rd class about the noun morphology that I said, like, we didn't really see this in the 0th class because it's not like so important just to begin, but we have to know this theory. So this is kind of the same, but about verbs. Okay, we didn't really see all of these things that we are going to study in this lesson. So most of the things here are new, so please pay attention because this is quite important. Okay, so here we see like a lot of things actually. Then the Latin verbal system, as you can see, this you don't have to really learn. Okay, this is just like to shock you. Latin verbs have voice, active and passive, mood, indicative, subjunctive and imperative, tense, and here you have a lot of tenses in Latin, person, first, second, third, and number singular and plural. Okay, so there is a lot of things to learn and take into account in Latin verbs. Okay, in turn, there are also non-personal, non-finite is the same. Non-personal and non-finite is the same. Forms, so participles, infinitives, gerund, gerundive, and supine. All of these we will be learning, not yet because this is kind of advanced. But I mean, all of this, again, this is just to show you, to impress you and say like, oh my God, there are so many things we have to learn in Latin verbs, and that's right. Okay, now, just the same way that in nouns we have statements, we also have statements in verbs. And of course, verbs don't have nominative, they don't have cases. So what is the statement of a verb? And why do we need the statement of a verb? So as I say here, the statement of verbs which informs us about the conjugation of the verbs under different stems, because verbs have different stems. Like imagine, for example, in English, to be, but I am, he is, you are, were, was. So there are many different stems on the same in the same verb, different stems. So in Latin, we will be having that quite often. So, okay. Latin verbs have 3 stems. Present stem, which is like in Latin terminology, let's say, is called infectum, which is the opposite of perfectum. So present stem, perfect stem, and supine stem. Okay. For now, don't freak out. Just learn this: present, perfect, supine. Okay. No need to freak out. According to the English-speaking tradition, the statement of verbs is made up of the following 4 forms. Again, here there is a little difference between the English-speaking tradition and the Spanish-speaking tradition. In the Spanish-speaking tradition, the statement of verbs is made up of 5 forms. But in this case, I accept this English-speaking tradition of only 4 forms because it's fine. So we will be using the English-speaking tradition in the statement of verbs. And what is the statement of a verb? We say the first person singular present indicative in the active voice, of course, present infinitive, active voice. We will see that Latin has many infinitives. It's kind of crazy. First person singular perfect indicative active and supine. Okay? So these are the 4 forms that we have to learn of each verb. When, again, we don't, remember that I said, we don't say rosa means rose. We say rosa rosae means rose. Okay, so here we don't say the verb amo means to love. No, we say the verb amo, amare, amavi, amatum, or amatus sum, it doesn't matter, this or this, means to love. Okay, so as I say here, the statement of the verb amo, of course, we are not going to be saying all the time amo, amare, amavi, amatum. We just say the verb amo, which is the first form, okay? But what we have to learn, what we have to study, and what we find in the dictionaries is all of this. And from all of these forms, we can conjugate any verb in all of these. Okay, so that's the importance of the statement of verbs. Of course, I know that that's kind of a lot of information, a lot of theory, which we will have to put in practice. We will have to practice and actually absorb what we just explained. Okay, but for now, let's continue with the grammar. The 5 Latin conjugations. Just the same way that we have 5 noun declensions, we have 5 verb conjugations. Okay? In order to know the conjugation a verb belongs to, we have to look at the infinitive in the statement. So remember, in the nouns, we were checking the genitive to know the declension. In the verbs, in the statement, we look the infinitive. Remember that the infinitive is the second form of the statement. And it is, again, the second form which says the conjugation of the verb. So if you know Spanish, you know what this conjugation thing is about, no? So for example, in Spanish, there are 3 conjugations, ar, ir. And you can see, actually, that this Spanish thing, ar, ir, comes from are, ere, ire, okay? Because of course you know that Spanish comes from Latin, no? So of course there are many things in common. Okay, so, but now focusing on Latin. There are 4 conjugations plus an extra one. That's why we say 5 conjugations. Okay, so first conjugation, the verbs whose infinitive ends in are. So for example, we have amo, amare, amavi, amatum. So we go to the second form of the statement, and we see that it is are, so automatically we say first conjugation. Laudo, laudare, laudavi, laudatum. Here, are, first conjugation. Here, second conjugation, ere, where, and this is important. Remember about these things on top of the vowels? So when ere, the e is long, it's second conjugation. When ere, the e is short, is third conjugation. Okay, so we start to see the importance of the details. Okay, so second conjugation, ere with long e. So moneo, monere, monui, monitum. Deleo, delere, delevi, deletum. And yes, you might be maybe wondering, does this have to do something with delete? Yes, delete comes from here in English, no? Interesting. Okay, so now third conjugation, ere with short e. And notice my pronunciation. Monere, delere. Here, duco, ducere, not ducere, ducere. Mitto, mittere, not mittere. Okay, so here again we see the importance of what we were explaining in the first class when we were talking if the last, so remember, no? Penultimate syllable, if it is long, it has the accent. If it is short, the accent goes in the previous syllable. Now everything starts clicking. Okay, so duco, ducere, duxi, ductum, etc., etc. Okay, well, I'm not going to be spending a lot of time on this because it's not so important right now. Then there is because we see that we are in the first conjugation, second conjugation, third conjugation, fourth conjugation, but in the middle there is this mixed conjugation. Let's skip this for now. Let's go to the fourth conjugation, which is ire. So audio, audire, and of course audio has to do with listening, no, to hearing. So audire, venire, etc., etc. And then the mixed conjugation is like the third conjugation, but the first person singular present indicative ends in io. So here, no, like here it doesn't end in io. Here it ends in io. In a separate class with their own practices, etc., we will see the importance of distinguishing between the third conjugation and the mixed conjugation. For now, it is not really so important. So pretty much first, second, third, fourth. Are, ere, mere, ire. The verbal stems. There are 3 verbal stems. We said this already, no? Like present stem, perfect stem, supine stem. No? Remember, they are essential to conjugate and recognize the tenses, not the tenses, the tenses and moods. In order to get a verbal stem, we need to do the following. So how, from the statement, how do we get each of the stems, each of the 3 stems? To get the present stem, we remove the ending o from the first form of the statement. So for example, we have duco, we remove the o and we get duc. Okay, so this is the present stem, but quite easy, no? However, in the first conjugation, there is an exception, because in the first conjugation, after removing the ending, we have to add an a. So for example, if we say amo, we remove the o and we get am, but this is not the stem. To am, we have to add a, and now this is the stem in the first conjugation, the present stem. Okay? Okay, that was kind of easy. Now the perfect stem is even easier. We remove the ending e from the third form of the statement. So for example, amawi, we remove the e and we get mau, and duxi, we remove the e and we get dux, and that's it. Now, kind of like pro information. This, like, you really don't have to learn this, but this is useful to recognize verbs. Okay, so let's explain this shortly. There are 4 types of perfect stems. These ones that we just checked. No, there is the u stem, either vocalic or consonantic. Remember what we were explaining in the first class about u when it is a vowel, a pure vowel, or a semi-consonant. Okay, so the u stem, you see abui or amaui. Okay, then sigmatic. Why sigmatic? Because sigmatic is from the Greek letter sigma, which is equivalent to s, and we call it sigmatic because the root, the stem, ends with s. Okay, so the sigmatic kind of perfect stem is frequent in the third conjugation, often with some phonetic changes, phonetic or similar changes. Okay, so for example, Dixie, we know that the X is a double consonant. So what we actually have is Dixie. No? Then we remove the E, as we said, and we see that the root ends in S. Now, Missy, again, we remove this and we have the perfect stem miss, etc., etc. Then there is the simple or strong, is the same name. There are 2 names for the same thing, with no special mark except for the root itself. Like we don't have a u, we don't have a s. Is the root itself which says this is perfect stem, not present stem or any other stem. Okay? So we see most of the times the root is exactly the same in the present and in the perfect stem, either with the same vowel length. So for example, bibo or bibi. Bibo is the present, bibi is the perfect. This means drink. So this would be I drink, and this would be I drank. But we see that the root is the same. Okay? And actually even like the vowel is the same. But other times, the root is apparently the same, emo, I buy, emi, I bought. But here in the present stem is short, in the perfect stem is long. Sometimes there's also a change of the vowels. So for example, in the verb facio, to do, to make, we see that the root is fac with short a, and the perfect is fec with e, and the e is also long. So there are 2 characteristics. Again, you don't really have to learn this, just like get some of this information in your head, and you will see that in the future you will think like, oh, this is what we studied like 1 month ago or something, okay? And then reduplicate it with the first consonant of the root duplicated at the beginning plus a vowel, usually a. What does this mean? So for example, we have the verb do, which is not do, it's the verb to give, okay? And then the perfect, we see that it's de, di. So we kind of duplicate, no? Like de, do, then like with dedi, okay? But not always. It's not always de. For example, in mordeo, which is bite, it is not me mordis, mo morde. Depends on the verb, okay? Okay, so again, as I said, this is not like something that you have to learn by heart, just like kind of have understood it and have it somewhere in your head, and you will see that in the future you will be glad that you were watching this video. We cannot know beforehand what type of perfect stem corresponds to a verb, no matter whether we look at its present stem or its conjugation. That's why we have to learn the whole statement for each verb, since all the 3 stems are included. Okay, so this is pretty much to say, learn the whole statement. And the last part of this, the last stem is the supine stem. We remove the ending from the 4th form of the statement. So amatum, we remove and we get amat. Ductum, we remove duct. That's it. Okay, so super easy, this thing about getting the stems, etc. Of course, we have to practice it to know what we are doing, really, not just like theory, but actually like getting something done, no? And last, this thing which we actually already know from the 0th class, so really nothing new. Well, actually, yes, one new thing. Because this, if you remember, I said in the 0th class, I was saying like, okay, so these are the endings of the present. But no, these are not actually the endings of the present. These are the active personal endings. And now these endings will work with most of the tenses in the active voice. Okay, so it's quite profitable to learn these endings because they will work with most of the tenses. Okay, now all of the verbs in the active voice, except for the indicative perfect past, which we will study, I don't know, in some classes, in some modules, use the following personal endings. What we know already is this: o, s, mus, tis, nt. Okay, it's kind of weird to pronounce it like this. And now here we see this o or m. Okay, that is because in the present it is actually o. In some tenses it will be o, but in some other tenses it will be m. But the rest, it is always like this. Okay, so again, these endings we will be using in most of the tenses, okay, except for this indicative perfect past. Okay, so so that's it. That's it for now. This class. Now in the next class, which is already the last class of the first module, we will go deeper in the present.